Jessica, thank you so much for joining us for our Women's History Month series. For those at home, Jessica is a director of mechanical engineering out of our San Jose office. Jessica, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to Bloom?
So I joined Bloom 13 years ago as a mechanical engineer. I came by way of Intel, where I worked as a sustaining mechanical engineer. And prior to that, got my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering from Stanford.
That's amazing. So moving into our questions, this year's theme for International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. How do you choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality, celebrate women's achievements, and/or help create a more inclusive world?
That is a meaty question. So let's break it into three parts. I'll answer it in the three parts. So the first one, choosing to challenge and calling out gender bias. You know, the way I approach this is just by challenging the conventional stereotype of how an engineer should look and act. And the way that I do this is by a one-on-one process. I build connections with my team, my coworker, and my vendors, all on a technical level. So I bring an antidote for this. Very early on in my engineering career, one of my first projects for Bloom, I was looking for some stainless steel pipes for a project I was working on. I called up a hardware store and hearing my voice, the salesperson, probably making a snap judgment about how I sounded, he asked me why I needed shiny pipes and proceeded to tell me that something else would suit my needs. Instead of getting frustrated that he initially judged me from the sound of my voice, I took the conversation to his expertise, and I explained with confidence that I needed stainless steel because it was corrosion resistant and not because it was shiny. There was an awkward pause, and he helpfully then, realizing that I knew what I was talking about, pointed me in another direction to a store that carried what I needed. I had made a connection with him by confidently engaging on a technical level. And I really used this as my model for challenging gender bias by confidently and competently engaging one by one to break any long-held stereotypes. All right, so second part of this question, celebrating women's achievements. So in my community, I do this by being on the board of an organization at Stanford called Cap and Gown. And this is an organization that cultivates and empowers women leaders by bringing together members of the Stanford community who demonstrate and celebrate women's leadership. As a member of this board, I help to host quarterly service and networking events where both student leaders and alumni get together, and we create a supportive community between all of these women where these women can learn and we learn from one another and find the tools that we need to excel together. Lastly, the third part of this question, inclusion. I'm helping create a more inclusive world at home where I am mom to two young girls who have only known me as an engineering professional. And again, creating those personal connections where my children can see that engineering can be inclusive. For the last year, my children have experienced their working mom firsthand, seeing me in my home office at my computer and hearing me leading meetings with my team. We have also visited installed Bloom boxes where I show them with pride the product that Bloom Energy produces. We talk about the trial and error process of engineering, how it's okay to fail first time around, just as long as we learn from our mistakes and try again. We talk generally about the issues that my own team faces and how I spend time trying to help them overcome their own issues. And I can only hope that they take my example and see that engineering can include all types of people, including girls, females, women.
That's incredible. You've really made an impact not only in engineering, but you're cultivating a very inclusive environment for your girls who not only grow up with playing with dolls, but they're seeing their mother firsthand working on these incredible systems that not only are highly technical in a male-dominated world, but you're really showing them that girls can do anything they want. So that was wonderful. Thank you.
I hope so.
The next question on our list, what has been your experience trying to hire women in engineering and cultivating a diverse team?
So hiring a diverse team takes a really close partnership with the recruiting team. And I work with them to take a holistic approach to each candidate that we find. For me, it's really important to understand what each person can bring to a team, whether it is a very highly technical background, a potential for leadership, an ability to create strong interpersonal connections with a cross-functional team. Looking at all those different vectors, women, men, different race, identity, all of that. And then also, when we do bring in candidates on our interview panels, I consciously try to bring a diverse panel to get varied opinions and feedback on the candidates, and then also share Bloom's own diversity with the candidates that we're bringing in.
It's amazing. Yeah, I know engineering is typically a male-dominated field, so it's wonderful seeing you take the steps to try to cultivate a diverse team, not only from different backgrounds and ethnicities, but gender inclusion as well. You mentioned that you have 2 girls at home. As a mother and a career professional, what's your perspective on work-life balance?
All right. So I will start off by talking about, I hope that through this interview, you've really seen that I really enjoy and I love what I do. Creating awesome products using engineering problem solving, and then also helping my own team to overcome their own challenges. That's really what drives me to continue working. However, when the end of the workday rolls around, I know my children are counting on me to spend that few precious hours with them before bedtime. Pre-pandemic, it was a sprint to leave the office to pick up my children, feed them dinner, and get them to bed at a reasonable hour. And pre-pandemic, well, I would work at home as needed. Sometimes the late night call, responding to email on my phone. The physical separation from work really helped to define work-life boundaries. After March 2020, 1 year ago, without that end of the day sprint to really separate, work from home, now that I have a dedicated home desk, and it's really hard to find personal activities on the weekend, I find a lot of that extra time going right back into work. I have recognized that I expend so much energy on work sometimes and really have nothing left in that reservoir for my family, which has been, that's been tough. Even with all the articles that have been written about that, it took me a while to recognize this behavior. And since then, I've just really tried to think about things that I can do to get back to, some aspects of pre-pandemic life, whether it's like seeing friends, socially distant lunches, or, as many calls, other Zoom calls I can handle with friends, or, getting some exercise, or trying to take the girls out and, my family out to go get exercise, visiting local parks together, things like that, just to help break up this monotony of, being in the same office all the time.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. And I think that's something that a lot of us are still kind of struggling with, is trying to find those defined boundaries between work and life, whether that's motherhood or even just a social life, because there isn't a separation. We don't have physical connection with people. And so it's nice to hear that you are taking those steps to try to not only do that for yourself, but your family as well. Do you think women bring a unique perspective to engineering, especially in the energy space? How, why, or why not?
Yeah, so what I don't want to do is speak for all women, because, all women, that encompasses so much, not just me. But what I want to talk about is what I, as a woman, feel that I bring to engineering, to the energy space. And, I feel like my strength is that I like to be very collaborative. As I approach engineering product design, I like to talk to all my team members, get their diverse opinions before deciding how to proceed on complex product challenges. It's been generally more of a feminine characteristic to get lots of people's opinions, to talk to lots of people, and leveraging each one of my team members' broad knowledge, and then using my own experience so that we can move our product down the right path.
That's wonderful. And I do agree with you, and it being traditionally a female characteristic to kind of have that more collaborative element. So that's interesting that you also feel like you bring that into the energy and engineering space as well.
I will say though, I do work with many of my coworkers. They also, they do that as well. And I won't say that that's only a feminine character.
Of course not. Of course not. All right, this one's a bit more of a fun one. Who is your favorite historical female figure, and what do you admire about her?
This person was a tireless advocate for gender equality. She was a mom, but not an engineer, and it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I will admit that it was really hard for me to think about my favorite historical engineering figure. Maybe because this wasn't really part of my history books or education as I was growing up. So what I hope is that when my girls are asked this question 20 years from now, they will have an engineering figure. It doesn't have to be engineering, but if that's what they choose, that they will have a role model or a favorite historical female figure that's engineering, and they won't kind of have to rack their brains for, like that one person they were thinking of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, Ruth is one of my very top favorite females as well. And it is interesting to kind of think about not only from an engineering space, but STEM in general. Like, it's becoming more prominent, whether it's female astronauts, scientists. I do think when your girls are grown up and have this question posed back to them, there's going to be a lot more from a STEM perspective that they'll have to analyze. So it's interesting. All right, Jessica, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us for Women's History Month's efforts and your contributions to Bloom. You're a valuable part of our team.
Thank you so much. It was really my pleasure to join you today.